and we can there.
Sorry, my bad.
That's why I stopped you. You usually stop me and I'm over here, wait a minute.
Thank you for being compliant.
We are not, okay. It is 4:02 and I'm gonna call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Chair Flores,
Right here.
Member Carrillo,
Present.
Member Maria Beeman, Member John Lawless, Member Julia Liu,
Present.
and Member Rob Taylor.
Here.
Okay, and if we could have self-introductions.
Christina Clausen with the Porterville Chamber.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll now go into oral communications. This is the opportunity to address the audit committee on any scheduled matter. Unless additional time is authorized by the committee, all commentary shall be limited to 3 minutes per individual and no more than 15 minutes total. Are there any oral communications this evening? Are there any online?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you very much. See that there are no one online virtually or no in-house. We will now go on to scheduled matters. The first one is the approval of draft minutes of internal city audit committee meeting of August 31st, 2021. And it's considering the approval of the draft minutes. And everyone has had the time to review them.
Move for approval.
We have a motion for approval.
I'll second.
And a second. No further discussion. Call for vote. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, we will now move on. Please note from the Porterville Chamber self-introduction by the board member present, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I apologize for my tardiness. Is getting across sounds a little quick, difficult. I'm Anthony Martin. I am the chair-elect for the
Okay.
Porterville Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you very much. We will now go on to item number 2, the continued review of agreement between city and Chamber of Commerce. Continued review and discussion of potential amendments to the agreement between the city and the Porterville Chamber of Commerce. What you received in the packet was what legal counsel have sent with all the revisions and discussions and items that were made when we met on August the 31st. And I'm just going to note that when I printed the document that it said page 6 on everyone. So if you go and on each one of them, there should be a total of 6 pages, but I'll refer to them as page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And I'm going to ask the question to legal counsel to this regard as we go through them page for page. All the revisions and the changes have been noted for the information that you received.
Yeah, I will note that I did receive a communication from Alan. He mentioned that he was going to check it. So there might be, I think, so there may be changes that I'm not aware of that, or corrections that I'm not aware of, which if
So
you've got them, that'd be great.
Yes, I know that he wanted to request the Word document because.
And I did, I sent it to him.
Very good. There was a couple items that he noted that weren't in red, that he knew he had changed.
Oh,
So that
okay,
was
okay,
one concern.
okay. I didn't, so all the minor corrections and the things that everybody was clear and agreed on, I just went ahead and made those changes.
Okay.
So maybe we are on
Maybe
the same
that's-
page.
Yeah.
Okay, and then, and I apologize, I didn't have his red line, so I had to kind of go back and recreate, so when I was doing it, so that's why it was a little bit confusing. Normally I would make it really clear and then we'd be able to see it. So the 2 things that were in red were just kind of like highlights of it, just to make sure everybody was good with the language. So, if you're looking, for instance, at on the
That would be page
first
2.
page 6, page 6.2. Letter C, that had been added. There was a chamber shall coordinate with the city because there was a request for mutual coordination and there was language that had been added over in the city responsibilities about coordination. And so I added that, but I wanted to make sure there were eyes on it because it was not, we didn't discuss the specific language. So I wanted to make sure that, you know, that was something even though the concept was discussed, the actual language wasn't in it. So I highlighted that. And then the other part that was highlighted was under the city responsibilities under subsection A, I wanted to note that I had taken out the dollar amount, not because we're going to have council consider that as we discussed with the last one. But I also wanted to make sure everybody was comfortable with the way the payments will be occurring. And the language on receipt, which we talked about too at quite some length. So that's why that one's highlighted. And everything else, I think, was pretty much, wasn't a major, any kind of issue of controversy or any kind of major discussion. So that's where we are.
Thank you for that. And I'm gonna go back to page 2. Item number C under chamber responsibilities, and I'm bringing it to the table because that's what was added in, correct? The language is what was added in. And I'm going to ask the chamber if there are any concerns or revisions with that paragraph. And then I'll look at the membership. There were none? Okay, and all the members over here on this side had time to review it, and you're good with it, okay. Now let's go to the third page, the city responsibilities. The dollar amount has been left blank, and that has been done intentionally because I'm going to reiterate, we stated at the last meeting here that the request that was made on behalf of the chamber was not something that the audit committee could present. And we did that under oral communication, just highlighted that that request was on behalf of the chamber, but as an audit committee, it was not something that we were going to be involved with the recommendation. And please correct me, legal counsel, during this, but the original amount, of course, was for the 35,000 per the agreement. The requested amount is not something for this agreement. And if we're going to take it to the full council for a discussion, I'm gonna ask the chamber, what time frame were you looking for? What, because the dates, you have the April the 15th dates, and the time frame is going to be, is it something, it's gonna go to city council. Is it, are you, I mean, prepared, because this is a budget request. That additional $10,000 is a budget request. It's not an agreement request. But it would have to be sort of simultaneously incorporated. Am I correct?
Well,
Or
no, we can ask for a budget adjustment. Remember,
Okay.
Maria mentioned that they can always, they can do a budget adjustment if they need to, so that's not a problem.
a budget adjustment if they need
City
to,
can
with
make
the
a budget adjustment.
documentation to substantiate.
Right,
that
we would just,
request.
that's internal on, or not internal, it would be
Okay.
a separate item for the city council with the budget adjustment to corresponding
So
budget
it's-
adjustment.
It's just one or two things. So under annual review, the amount and responsibilities is already part of it. So is it to be considered concurrently or under that provision? Under the annual review or as part of?
So what would be the easiest way to do this?
And we're looking at.
So we're currently,
I'm gonna look to the electeds. I mean, um,
I
The-
imagine
the-
it'd be easier to do it with this contract approval.
This is something that would have to be presented to the full council. It would have to be agendized. It would have to be an agendized item. In other words, to put it on the council and then have that discussion publicly.
so was the question, just so I understand, it's a question because we've been running this on the fiscal year, but now we're gonna switch because the first payment will be made on January. At least that's how it's written in here. So it's just a matter of timing into when we start this agreement, because
Well,
we'll have,
it goes to why we're meeting in the first place, which was
Yeah.
to review
Mhm.
review the modifications to the agreement that you and Alan started
yeah,
during COVID, because the activities that it specified in here were unable to be.
right.
And I would say still have challenges and. And so then looking at so the purpose of the audit committee was to review the agreement in its entirety. So the amount, I would say, is, and that's really the question, is it to be considered as a budgetary reappropriation? Saying that, which I would say is separate from the city audit committee, because the purpose of us getting together was to review the agreement that Alan and Julia had started. So the secondary is a budget request, and then it's just a matter of timing. Is it taken as a separate item while the agreement itself is being reviewed, or there's language that's been drafted in here that says it would be by 15th for the next fiscal year.
I'm going to ask Councilmember Correll if she has any input to this regard.
So I'm trying to get a clear overview. So because it's complicated with the budget layer. So the city budget is October through,
July 1 through June 30.
okay, that's our,
And then the chambers is a unique, it's November. to
November to
July.
October.
okay. So, and then the agreement is, one more time, is this through beginning on July 1st? So this coincides with our budget.
Right, which is why there was, even though it's in the middle of the chamber's fiscal year, this April, or I think it says by April 15th, right? Because
By April 15th,
on
is
or
when they
before,
furnish
which
annual financial
always
activity
means
reports.
February. in my
Yeah.
mind.
Okay.
Never wait till April 1 to start something.
So we could, I mean, one option is to adopt, we can put this to the council to basically be prospective for the next period, right? So it wouldn't go into effect until, but it would be a full year then. We'd be looking at putting it into effect. If you want to wait for the next budgetary cycle, it goes into effect at the, right?
Well, so when you look at the quarterly payments, they're beginning a calendar year.
Right.
So you have January 31st. So the quarterly payments are based on a calendar year, which is based upon then on what the whatever the amount is that's determined on or before April 15th. So it's looking forward. I would say that's the question I guess I'm really asking is
Right.
what is the expectation? Because if it's a matter of
Implement this
just
starting January
amending the
1st.
amount, in our budget year, it'd be a it would just be a request for additional appropriation beginning whatever effective date. This talks about quarterly payments as it's being amended beginning in January.
So if we make this effective January 1st, then we need to do a budget adjustment. The city council would have to consider a budget adjustment
Right,
and
'cause
approve a
we're gonna-
budget adjustment.
Because what's been approved in the budget is 35,000,
Yeah.
but it's not truly the full amount because it's a mid-year implementation.
Mhm.
So for this year's agreement, it wouldn't be the 45, it would be 40.
And then
Right.
that 45,000 is still subject for discussion.
Well, yeah, it has to be.
Yeah.
approved. Where we
Yeah.
know it's a hypothetical.
Yeah, just the hypothetical.
Well, I'm
Make
just
it
trying to-
hypothetical 40,000 or 45,000 would actually be 40,000 if
In my
that's what they.
opinion, yes, that would, so, and just because I deal with numbers for a job too, I have some empathy on the fiscal year and how that works. And having to take things to board. So from my perspective, it would be better to wait till the new fiscal year, so that way it can be approved at once rather than, that is my one perspective, Christina, so.
No, I agree. I think we'll go with what Dr. Martin mentioned. Let's go ahead and wait for the next budget.
So under this, should the contract language be amended? I mean, that's what I'm saying. There's a little bit of this. We're working on amendments that define a process that's not really well defined right now, which
Yeah.
would say on or before April 15th. We would define what that budgetary, but as part of that as well, what the activities are. It's kind of what's the,
So I would say let's change the payment cycle so it's not so confusing then too. I mean, we can reorder the months on this to make it work with the fiscal
Coincide
year.
with the fiscal
Yeah, I think
year.
that's part of the
Okay.
confusion.
Yes.
Okay.
It's part of the confusion for me.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
So are they currently, before this were revisions, they're currently being distributed this quarter, these dates?
so this is a change. So this language is a change from the current agreement, which says
Oh,
that
I
it
have it
is
here.
no later than the first of the following month of when the chamber provides a quarterly report.
That
This would define.
Okay,
actual
got it.
date.
Mhm.
Now I remember putting it
This
all
is the
together.
difference
That,
between-
yeah, okay. I do think the dates change would
Yeah,
help.
because I see the one
We
from the
just-
previous one.
we would just reorder them. So the 4 equal payments would be July 31st, October 31st, January 31st, April 30th.
just doesn't.
Yeah, does that make sense? Okay,
What are those dates again?
it's,
It's
okay,
just- It's the same ones.
it's the
just
same ones,
starting
just
in July.
reordered.
Starting.
October.
Yeah.
We can send it over.
That helps. When it starts.
Yeah.
And then that'll coincide with the fiscal year. Okay.
So as an example, right now, under the current language, the chamber would provide a quarterly report. So July, August, September, first, next month, next Tuesday,
Mhm,
which then after, well, it just says at the end of the quarter,
mhm.
which, so the end of the quarter would be just as we're finishing this month. So, and then it says by the first of the month following the report given.
Okay.
And then that's where I would say that just having date certain is easier than remembering that, okay, the chamber gave the report and then now we've got to trigger something that is by the first.
But we're looking at this agreement itself going into effect then basically June 1st, right? That would be, is that,
July 1st.
or July 1st, sorry, July 1st, I knew that.
Well, again, this is where are there terms in here that makes more sense to go in sooner rather than later? From where we're working today. That's a question for both. Because
Yeah.
we've come together to talk through these things
Well, it can,
because things
well,
need to
that's a
be.
good point. So it could go into effect sooner with the payment changing on July 1st,
Well,
potentially, if it's
Potentially,
approved by the
if it's approved by
council.
Mhm.
But that's,
So this would be defining a process, because right now it's not defined
Mhm.
on how that happens.
right, well, then that allows then that April 15th date. See, it's already in effect, so then they can, the reports and the projections that we talked about that are in the agreement can be made then. So that'll all start happening, but the payment then cycle would change if the chamber, if the city council agrees. We could propose that.
Put in the change then. I think that sounds the best.
We spent a lot of time going through this to try to get something that works better for both sides. I'd rather. For
I
a
mean,
selfish opinion, I'd rather say
and
go.
you'll
in
have
with
to forgive me,
something
I'm
rather than
stepping-
later.
I feel like I'm stepping in at the end, but I feel like I know in the conversations, there's been a lot of time spent on this, and to wait to implement the whole agreement till July 1
Yeah.
seems like the last couple of meetings have been all rushed together for no reason at that point. Otherwise, then we should have been looking at spacing it out a little more, just from
Yeah.
my perspective.
So effective upon approval of the parties, we can recommend that.
So I guess looking to schedule this probably the second meeting of October for consideration by council for modifications to the agreement.
The proposed changes that we would take then as a proposal would be to that page 3, that payment, that subsection A under Roman numeral 2. And rather than saying during the term of this agreement, we would say this, because it's just the payment now we're talking about, the proposal would be commencing July 1st. City would pay the chamber the sum of, and we're gonna leave it blank so the council can, but the recommendation from the chamber will be to up that to 45,000 per year, was said payment made quarterly in 4 equal payments of, and we'll divide up whatever that lump sum is accordingly equally, and then we'll reorder the payment so that it starts July 31st, October 31st, January 31st, can't read my writing, and April 30th. So those will be the changes to that section. Okay, at least the proposed changes. And the agreement would then take effect upon approval by the parties. You know, and we can, well, so it'll be the last approval, whichever that, whether it's the chamber or the city.
And at this point, does anyone have any questions to what Julie has just clarified and stated through that paragraph?
No.
Okay, because
I
that.
don't. I like it. It
Yeah,
feels
so
like
do
it's
I.
we're finally getting to a
We've
point
had a lot
where
of
it kind of
discussion here
matches.
and a tug and pull.
I have to
from
say it
that.
out loud
Mr.
or I will
Taylor,
not
did you
remember.
have any questions?
As the public member, what do you think?
That's why I'm looking at Mr.
What does the
Taylor.
public think?
Hey, let's just give him the money, you know? No, I'm good. It all makes sense now. That's always been a problem with,
I like, Mr. Taylor's statement there, though, if we could make sure that's in the minutes.
It's always been a, problem with fiscal years and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's,
Completely understand how
That's
this,
a-
how that works.
But I do appreciate that we started with different agreements
Oh,
and
yeah.
things to reference, and then the red line, and then the confusing our dates, so I think we're getting there.
So we got Councilmember Carrillo here this time because she was virtual the last time, and when I said 45,000, she goes, what? Kidding.
I was like,
on that one.
Just need to mention some money and
And she goes, what?
I'm like, we're still working on it. Overwhelming.
That's why she came today, no, I'm just kidding.
No, I rushed over here.
I just want to, we've covered a lot of conversation and a lot of stresses during this process, and I want to say thank you. We've gotten this far, and at least we know where it is we're going to take it, and it's appreciated. And you have no questions, no more?
I do actually, we do have one more
Please.
item.
He
we
didn't
wanna
realize
review.
I'd accepted his
Okay.
changes essentially, so they weren't in red line anymore. He's like, where's my, they're in there, they're just not, so that, and that's,
Okay.
We
Please
want
go
to see
ahead.
that red line. So we
Yeah.
do have one more question, and that's gonna be on page 4. Item number 3 there, a city representative shall meet personally with the chamber designee at least on a monthly basis. So my board did express, they were really hopeful to see city manager on there. So I kind of want to circle back to that conversation. I know that their concern was just having direct contact. We've had really good conversations the last few weeks, so I just want to discuss that.
this is which one? This is
Number three.
Number
on
three.
page
number
4.
3. Okay,
Page 4.
gotcha.
How
How do you feel about that, city
How
manager?
important is that?
I'm accountable to the council.
And then,
And I've always made myself available.
Yeah,
In
and
fact, I
then-
go to your GAC meetings as best as much as I
Absolutely.
can. So this isn't, I hope the message is that I'm not available because I've tried to make
No,
myself conceded and so.
so, their concern was just direct, not waste any of our time. And I had expressed to them that we have been speaking more recently, weekly, actually. And, they enjoy those updates, they, direct updates. And so I think they want to continue seeing that.
It's, the only console I have is that it's, there are times where Jason may be more knowledgeable about something. I mean,
Of course.
I operate sometimes at a 10,000-foot level where your question may be at the 100 level.
Okay.
Not on all things, on some things. Obviously the agreement, I'm at the granular level in this, but depending on what was the thing the other day, wasn't even aware of it.
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, well, I gotta get caught up on whatever's.
And I can appreciate the question because as Mr. Lawless has stated, in the area of discussion, if he is not available, it will be his director that will be having that discussion with the chamber, with you to that regard. So
And I think that was really just the concern. They didn't just want anybody. They wanted to make sure that we had someone knowledgeable, someone that would be direct, and someone that wouldn't say, hold on, let me get back to you. Someone, and obviously sometimes there's times that'll be your response.
Well,
But we
and I
don't-
made it very clear.
You asked me,
when we
I gotta
started.
remember what it was. I was like, you don't want my.
And that is correct, because we made it very clear, there are only 2 people that the city council hires. And that's legal counsel and the city manager. Those are the only 2. So as we will call him so that he can delegate and determine who can best answer that question. So that would be the conversation. If it's not him, it would be his person that he asked to be there or have that communication with you.
I'll just put something in like from time to time, the city manager may designate an alternative staff
Mhm.
member.
Conversely, who has the authority to speak for the chamber? I've run into that before.
Do we have it outlined? I would have to review my
You're looking at
bylaws.
the chair elect.
Maybe that would be something good to add
That would-
because
It would be good for us to double check our bylaws to see what it
Good
says
question.
That has
specifically,
happened
because,
before,
no,
where
absolutely.
I've
'cause
had difference between staff and board members.
Well, and if there's turnover also, in either, so
We can
that
take
would be
that.
designated.
Or you, and that's about it.
It should,
Yeah.
so from my experience, it should either be the CEO or the chair. Now, I know sometimes even then there have been differences
And I
between the
just say-
two.
So you've heard me say this, I have healthy respect for those that are in office. So typically, my level of comfort is with staff, just.
I-
that's
And,
what
and I
always-
completely understand that. You know what I do for a living, so
I know,
you,
so
I completely.
would selfishly prefer to work with
And-
the
and-
director, staff to staff, but it has at times had a different.
I have no intention on reaching out to you.
No, no, no.
That's why she's there. That's why we employ her.
So I can just put language in for both. So basically,
Vice versa.
it'll be another
Yeah,
mutual
yeah.
clause and it'll have the same line. It'll just designate the executive director of the chamber, like it designates the city manager, with both of you being able to, from time to time, designate someone else when the need arises. Does that work?
I
So
like
kinda
that.
General, okay.
I'm happy.
And unfortunately, there are times when there is no director.
Mhm.
It has to be somebody.
We've seen that.
Stop saying that.
Please go ahead.
You're gonna volunteer?
I think another,
No, there have been from time to time.
Councilmember
There
Pro,
won't be
go
anymore.
ahead.
I think just during the updates like you provided the other night was really great. I think those are times where we could, either side should be able to express that. I haven't seen the city manager or any staff for a few months. Is there a way that we could connect? That, so that it doesn't go back to, we have to wait till we revise an agreement or get into where we're disconnected. I think to try to stay connected, maybe utilize that.
I'd be happy if this said the city manager and the chief executive should be monthly, on monthly, at the time determined to be
Mhm.
convenient for both parties.
Yeah.
I'm happy for it. No offense to board members.
I do
No,
have a question.
It's like when I get a call from a city council member from another city, I go, oh, why don't you have your. why don't you have
Appreciation
your
for the chain
manag-
of command.
manager
Yeah, no, I completely appreciate that. And
I do have a question, and it's a side note. Because right now that we're having discussion with board of directors and all of this, I have looked on the chamber website numerous times and have not seen the board of directors' names on
No.
there. And I heard you the other night when you indicated that you were recruiting for board of directors, but that page has never been on the website.
So we are working with an outdated website system and we're in the middle of fixing that. So there's just glitches that I cannot fix. That's one of them. I've updated that multiple times. It's just,
Feel your pain.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's why we do
new
the
website
change.
will be coming very shortly and I will make sure that you all get that link. I can offer you my list by
A
email.
printed copy
be
would
great.
be
Yeah,
nice,
I can
just
get
to
that
see
to you.
who's on. Yeah, printed copy would
Definitely.
be nice.
Okay.
And that's only because I've tried and I've tried and I go, it's
You're
been
not
a
the
long
only
time and it's
one,
not
yeah.
there.
And
But I appreciate
yeah, I
it.
go up there and update it and it looks like it's gonna be good, but it's not.
Okay. All right, so we've had the discussion with regard to city responsibilities, item A. We've had the discussion with number 3. Is there anything else that we need to bring back to the table here so that we can just say, let's go with this?
Oh, on number 3.
Yeah, number 3.
So incorporating it, the same manager and CEO shall meet on a monthly basis agreeable to-
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's gonna reword
Yeah,
it.
I'm gonna, I might put it as a standalone rather than having it under city responsibilities, since it's a joint responsibility type thing. So
Okay,
that's my thought, is I'm gonna take that and move it to its own section.
I like that.
And is that term okay, Julia, on page 4, the number 3? That timeline?
No, you're right. It should be 22.
yeah, the
If we're talking about it
What are we looking at? I'm sorry.
It's-
number, the
So,
term on
um,
page
Oh,
4,
yeah.
2022. Are there any others that we should note? Any more?
Do you have a city as a person as an ambassador? Because
We don't.
we don't. Okay.
We don't. I believe prior it was someone from the library. We are having that meeting next week, if you'd like to.
So we're hiring some folks, they're not here yet, so, there are ones that would be natural.
Mhm.
Ambassadors.
Fit.
So,
And our goal with revamping the ambassador program is to not limit it to just one ambassador per business. We see that, that's why people were
right.
falling off, because they just couldn't do it, all. So we're going to incorporate more of a group or a tag team, where as long as it's one, not the whole group, coming to events at one time, but that they each know what's going on. So if that makes it easier.
Well, so like the reason so typically it's for ribbon cuttings and
Ribbon cutting.
other.
Any mixer events?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Activities.
It's the, I mean, I've got some folks in mind. It's some are on process of onboarding and that sort of thing. So I'd like to have one I mean, I have a person in mind, but it's just got to work through all the,
Mhm.
because I think they're a natural.
And we can keep them in the loop for the next meeting. The first couple I'm really making very informal. Just want to hear everyone, get to know everyone, and then we're gonna go into redoing the contract.
So candidly, it should be the economic development. The city's economic development manager would be a natural fit for the ambassador, which we're in the process of trying to hire.
I have a question with regard to the ambassador program, and it's just a question. That any member who is a business and chooses to have an ambassador, does that business have to pay like a small fee for that ambassador to participate?
At the moment, no.
That was a question that I had, because there are some chambers that
Yes.
do have the business where they pay their membership and their ambassadors pay a small fee. The business owner pays a small fee for their ambassador participation.
Yeah, at the
So-
moment, we don't. And I'm not gonna change that. Because.
Well, that's why,
That's
why I'm questioning it,
Yeah.
because they're,
So I just bring it up because I do think it's something that our economic development manager should be. So that was Jason Reinauer before his promotion to
Yeah.
community development director. So it's his replacement that we've been recruiting. That I think would be because that's one of their core
Yeah.
missions is business development and support. So just know that's who I would like to see there. It's just, I don't have that position for.
Good to know. I'll note that.
Dr. Anthony, when do you become officially the chairman?
Want me to answer that?
Yeah.
It's so complicated.
I'm not in front of my staff. No.
October,
There
November,
you
I
go.
forget when. I don't know.
Well,
So,
this year is probably going to be February to
Yes.
coincide with the awards and installation. That's.
so it should be November when our new fiscal year starts. But because of the awards installation banquet being postponed, we're gonna catch up this year and we're gonna do it February 2022. We will award the 2019 winners. We're gonna nominate and award 2020 and 2021. Then get back on track in November 2022, we will have our normal banquet
Like that.
and get back to normal installation.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear with regard to that.
Oh, I'm glad that made sense.
I just- Yes.
That's why I let you explain it. So.
I was ready.
So February 2022.
February 2022.
That's why I agreed, because it's only
It's
February to
shorter.
November.
You only have a 9-month stint, really.
Yeah.
You know, just for the record, I know a Rotary Club president that kind of stepped in an interim role and it went for like a year and a half, almost 2 years.
Yeah, I know.
Stuff does happen.
That's why I'm taking the shorter term in case it does happen. and
Chances are
Turns
it's
out
gonna-
I'm already mentally preparing.
Turns out 8 months.
It's gonna happen,
ends up
Daniel.
16.
it's gonna happen.
Okay. One more time, and it'll be the last time I'll ask this question. Is everyone, as the members in the chamber, good with the changes and the revisions that are going to be noted?
Yes.
no more questions, no further discussion on this. Legal counsel will make those revisions. and-
Yes, my question is, do we want to go ahead and does the committee want to take a vote on the, you know, with the changes that were proposed today, do you guys want to go ahead and, you know,
Oh, I see.
recommend that we propose that to the city council?
I
That's a
will,
good idea.
I will make the motion that we recommend the agreement with the changes that we were discussed today and take them to the city council.
Second that.
And we have a second by Mr. Taylor. And
That will
is
be,
there-
I'm sorry, I'll go ahead and finish. I'll ask.
No, any further discussion? Any discussion on that? You started to say
Just
something.
want to know when that will, what
That's what I
meeting
was
that will happen.
Just gonna say, I was gonna recommend October 19th.
Well, that's why I was looking, so we can go with October the 19th, so
Okay, that's the one.
on that one.
Make sure I'm there.
All right, we have a motion, we have the second, we have the date of October the 19th. Let me call for the vote here. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No opposition, no discussion, so it passed unanimously by the members present.
She's just really quiet.
Let us
She's
know for the
real
record
quiet.
that board member Bemis has voted aye.
You know what they say, always wants to quiet.
Yes, all right, then we will move on to other matters. Anyone have any other matters? We need to schedule the next
Well,
meeting
I was gonna
date.
say, and what do we want to talk about?
Well, I'm looking at the
Check.
date of October the 26th, and I think,
Oh,
no?
so, okay, yeah, I am out that entire week.
Okay, well, that's okay, that's good.
Do you want to meet the week before? So it really goes to the work product. So the charge of the council, the audit committee was to review the different agreements, which Chamber was one, Barn Theater was also another one, subject to review, Commission, Fairgrounds agreement. And we got a whole litany of
Yes. we do.
agreements. This is just one of.
This is the
probably
first
10,
one. Okay, this one was the first one,
which,
but we were also gonna bring some other
I-
items.
Yeah,
that were-
there's just a lot of activity right now in the, what's called pension obligation bonds, and one that I think that the audit committee should have a balanced conversation. about.
Well, is.
Both
that's-
sides.
yes.
Of that discussion.
And that's one that would probably be just for one meeting, the pension obligations, to have that discussion. And it's gonna be one that entails, since this one is gonna go to council, I think we're pretty much in the clear with this. And then we can bring another agreement after we have this discussion and go from there, because what do you feel,
What do-
Councilmember
This
Pearl?
meeting, what are we gonna talk about? What's the?
That's what we're,
That's what
so
we're
the
having.
charge of the council to the committee was to look
Right.
at, and it was all of its agreements with, which I think we have a dozen in totality, as well as any other items, which I recommended
Okay,
evaluating this whole pension obligation bond
Okay.
phenomena is what I
Yeah.
call
council, I'm gonna ask the committee members. The next one, the next agreement we were going to look at was the Barn
Mhm.
Theater agreement. That we can have that and begin the discussion on the pension obligations. Begin the discuss, and that's why I'm bringing it here.
Member thing.
Let's do them all. We can do it more than one at once.
How about we do this? How about for the next meeting, we schedule pension obligation bond? But then as well, provide a comprehensive list of all of the different agreements that
Contracts,
we have
okay.
that are all
That
gonna
would
be
be
subject
good.
to review
That would be
with
good.
copies of.
And
all
then
of
the
them.
committee picks which ones
Yeah.
we
Which
wanted
one-
to go through. But
Do they all
I
have
can't wait to get to
annual,
the bond.
sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah,
Do
anytime.
they all have annual dates like on the agreements?
No, this is why the chamber one is unique, because this has an
Okay.
annual. Most of them are long-term, like Barn Theater is. It was a long-term because they wanted to do capital improvements, which they needed long-term security to do, and,
Right.
you know, just haven't they wanted to do fundraising to say, because it's unique, we own they have a land lease. So the building is the property of, similar to the fairgrounds. They own the buildings, the city owns the property.
Right.
And so to do capital improvements, to do fundraising for capital improvements for the building they own, they needed the security that they had a long term. So I think we did, oh gosh, 25, 30 years. I mean, it's a long-term.
Okay.
Commission's the same way with the community center where they wish to, similarly, actually there, we own the building, they have maintenance responsibilities. of it.
Okay.
And when I say we, the city, we have the, I always want to call them exchange, but it's not, Kiwanis, which is the old Boy Scout hut at Veterans Park.
Do the Boy Scouts own that?
I think we just
Building?
need the list.
Yeah.
And we go
Let's get a
from
list, I'll
there,
look
that way at
This
the
is all
next
the things
meeting.
we need to
I
go
think
through.
that'll be
You'll
very
find
helpful.
fascinating stuff through in each of these.
Lots of history.
We have an agreement with,
Fascinating to some. I should probably qualify.
that's right, there's a lease agreement. So this was an epiphany. We own a building that Sheltered Workshop operates. They're just over here, which they say is their building, but it's actually the city's building. It's just, there's
Okay.
just some of this that, you know,
Is there an advantage for the city to own the land and
so
lease
this
like
just
that
goes to
instead of sell
the,
the land to the?
this just goes to, you know, the city had properties, still has properties, and then other entities use them, you know, Friends of the Library used things. That's another one that we're actively looking at. They had been in a city property. We have the hospital in a city property right now, under a lease agreement. Lots of
So-
city properties
Okay.
under agreement. with other parties.
We're looking at the third week,
If that works.
if
I
that
just
works
didn't-
for you.
If you want it later, we can,
We
you
can go
I'm just-
into November.
want to push in November?
We're doing both, right?
Yes, but he's gonna bring this with a list,
What do you-
a comprehensive list for the agreement.
So Maria's bringing up a subtlety of things. So you have
Is it too much?
what
for
are
us?
called, so you have what's called OPEBs, which are OPEB, which is your other post-employment benefits. We have a fairly manageable number because we don't offer lifetime medical. Some cities, like, that's what bankrupted Stockton, is that they had lifetime medical without, see, and they declared bankruptcy just because they couldn't afford it. So, and then they restructured it. They said, okay, no more lifetime medical. So you declare bankruptcy to avoid your stuff. The cities,
You also get sued over that.
so fortunately, the four leaders of the city didn't have, we didn't have lifetime medical. They can continue benefits at their own cost, but it's similar to school district. They can continue and they have supplements that they can purchase to have like a regular. But because we carry them until they're Medicare eligible, that's what's considered an other post-employment benefit, other than your pension. So medical primarily, dental, right?
Well, it would make sense to talk about that when we talk about the pension obligations.
Which is a separate issue, but it's reflected on your financial statements and because some cities, so right now on our financial report card, so
Right.
we have a very small OPEB number, but so we're doing what's called PAYGO. So we're just like, okay, we'll just pay this every year because it's a fairly small amount, but auditors don't like
It's
it.
causing a GASB problem.
Right.
I know,
So they're saying, well, wait a minute, you have
No.
this number.
slight problem.
Yeah, so just by putting some amount of money into a trust account and saying this is allocated for OPEB, would go from like an F to a whatever.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, because we've just been doing PAYGO.
So not really a GASB problem. It's actually just a problem with a
It's just
credit
a-
issue.
It's,
Okay.
it's an unnecessary, it's one that's easily fixed.
Yeah, okay.
And it would be great to have a recommendation from the audit committee to
Okay,
fix.
it sounds like it makes sense to do that when we're talking about the broader issues of the pension
Now,
obligation,
that's a whole different.
which I know is a whole different ball of wax, but still.
Still not as bad as a lot of other cities, but it's one that's certainly. needs some- Hobs are just,
Well, not a pension obligation bond, but it's a pension obligation.
so you have your unfunded OPEB and you have your unfunded pension.
Right.
And the city's done some things that's actually, I mean, a number of cities, didn't do, there's things that we've done on our side to help mitigate that, but it's still, everybody's got a very big number.
Okay.
I wish we were the state where they could, it's amazing what the state's done. So they take all of our grant funds that are sitting there waiting for our reimbursement, and then they just pay that down. They cash flow it
Yeah.
on the backs of everybody, of county and local governments. It's fascinating to watch how they do it.
What's your schedule?
Okay, so if you're looking at the week before, that last week of October, I think the only night right now that I'm available is the 21st of October. If we're going into the evening, if we're just going, it just depends on the time.
I have a library facility planning committee.
The
Oh,
21st is
thank you
also
for
the
telling me that.
redistricting
I know.
committee.
Oh,
that they're
okay,
gonna
and
be
the-
using
And
here.
Wednesday, I have a meeting Wednesday night. I've got a,
So
got a
if
meeting
it
Monday
doesn't
night.
work in October,
How about November? November, the first week of November looks better. So
we
far.
have city council meetings.
We have city council meeting, but the rest of the week looks pretty good.
How about the 3rd of November? Does that work for everyone?
Is it the same time, the
At
4?
the same time,
Yes.
4 o'clock.
Is that,
huh?
Is that something you
is
got?
that best for calendars? Just this next, we'll put some information together. I think it's going to be a lot of information to process.
It will be a lot. It sounds like it.
Mhm.
It sounds like it already.
A question on that, on the information then, is there an outlet for us to ask questions before the meeting? Can we do that? Can I do that?
Yes.
Can I keep that amongst the members of this
No,
committee?
what you would do is you would actually ask them directly to the city manager. And I think then,
He never returns my calls.
That's not true.
Not really.
Put that in the minutes.
yeah, it's tricky. So it's a little, this body's a little trickier since there's so much staff on the
Yes.
committee. So it makes it hard because we can't talk amongst ourselves without being in a meeting.
And then you have 2 members of
But I would
council that
say,
if it's-
right, I'd say direct it to John and
Okay.
hopefully, and John just won't be able to talk to me about it. Or I guess if it's a legal question, you can direct it just to me. We just can't, the 3 of us can't talk about it. Otherwise we need to have a meeting. So,
Okay.
but we can see if you have just like basic questions about something. And I'm gonna tell you right now on pension stuff, you're either gonna want to talk to John or Maria.
I'm gonna wait
I
till we're
know.
all back together.
Exactly.
Okay.
As you can see from all, she keeps shaking her, no, that's not
She's
what it is,
like, no.
Julia.
Okay. Councilman, did you have any other questions? You're good with everything?
Yes, I did have
think-
one. I forgot what it was. I think it was just the timeline.
Okay, so our next meeting will be November the 3rd at 4 o'clock. And no further discussion. It is 4:49. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Good work.